Hey guys, welcome back. Sherjan here, your personal mentor. So when you're working in a corporate, large corporate, let's say Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, or McKinsey, or PwC, one of these large companies, or even Google, for example, a lot of these companies have a lot of rules, a lot of ways or structure that they expect you to stay, between those sidelines. And yes, they can be very creative environments to work in, and you can learn a lot, and you can do great things. But they also limit you. They also prohibit you from doing other things, especially things that you might be very passionate about, right? For me, for example, when I started my career, I was always passionate about coaching other students, mentoring them, helping them. So on the weekends, as an investment banking analyst, I would fly to a new city for just a weekend, teach a workshop, and fly back. And I did that 12 times a year, right? And I continued doing that for the rest of my life. So now it's been 10 years for me. But having said that, was I allowed to do that? No, I wasn't, right? And a lot of times I got into trouble for doing it. A lot of times, even other analysts in my group would complain that, hey, why does Sherjan get to fly to, some other city on the weekend while we're in the office working? But the truth is, that was my choice, right? It was something that I did on my own time, and I never let it affect my work. But the problem is, you may have a passion of yours that you may be pursuing. Let's say you have an online store on Shopify that you're running. Maybe there's a travel blog that you manage. All of those things are your personal passion, right? Maybe there's another hobby that you do on your own time, and it doesn't really impact your work or hurt your work, right? In those situations, you might be like, hey, should I disclose it to my work that, hey, I have this outside business interest, right? Should I get permission for it? The answer to that is no. You should never get permission, because 99% of the time, if you go and get permission, you're going to be denied. Because think about it from the firm's perspective. The firm's trying to reduce their risk. They're trying to reduce, the avenues where you can actually spend your time on other things. They want to make sure you're focused on building things and creating the most value for the firm and for the team. Now, that's fine in work situations and in work hours, but when you kind of do things on your own free time, it's kind of wrong, in my opinion, for the firm to kind of put their foot down and say, hey, look, you can't do that. And every time, like I said, when you go and try to get permission, you're going to start hitting that red tape. Red tape from HR, from people who are there. Their whole job is to manage you not doing these other things, because it can ultimately, in some avenue, can risk the firm. And yes, those risks can happen. You could be at a conference and say something and get the firm in trouble. Yes, those things can happen, and they're trying to be safe about it. But the truth is, the more permission you're going to ask, the less they're going to allow you to do. So my rule in this whole situation is to never ask for permission, but ask for forgiveness, right? Always ask for forgiveness, not permission. So what does that mean? That means, let's just say you want to go teach these workshops like I did, right? Go, do them. Continue doing them until you get into trouble. And there's a day you may get into trouble. You may get into trouble. HR may call you, your boss may call you and be like, hey, what's happening? And you'll have to explain what's happening, right? But as long as you're doing something legal and it's fun and it's helping the world a little bit and it's your passion, trust me, you'll get permission then. But don't go for permission first, because if you do that, you're going to hit red tape and they're going to shut the idea down ASAP. So I'll give you a couple of examples of how I kind of got into that situation. So my first time at Morgan Stanley, while I was an analyst, some of the other analysts complained to the managing directors that, hey, Sherjan's teaching all these workshops and helping kids break into investment banking. So they complained literally to my MD saying, why is Sherjan doing this? He's making it easier for other analysts or other students to get the job that should be super highly coveted and hard to break in. Guess what? That MD called me into his office, asked me about my workshops, and then said, good job, keep doing it, right? Great. I didn't have to ask for permission, and he said, hey, look, stay within these lines, don't break any rules, but what you're doing is great. That's the first story. The second story I have is from Google, actually. So I used to teach, one of my workshops, one of the annual workshops was at Harvard, and one of the days, HR from Google reached out to me. It's like, hey, Sherjan, we need to chat. So I spoke with them, and they were like, hey, so we found out that you're teaching an event at Harvard. Is it a Google event? I'm like, no, it's not a Google event. It's an event where I'm actually just coaching students how to break into some of these industries. So apparently Harvard had reached out to Google saying, hey, Google, we only allow each company to have only a certain number of slots on campus to interact with their students. So this event cannot be a Google event. So we just want to make sure. Again, I just asked for forgiveness, didn't ask for permission. Google's like, you're doing everything fine, don't worry about it, but let's just make sure we're not labeling it as a Google event, which I wasn't. So again, asked for forgiveness. I said, no, never gonna happen. It's only gonna be my workshop. which is focused on career and recruiting. Similarly, one more story is from Morgan Stanley Hong Kong. So I started teaching all these events, continued teaching all these events, and some news articles came out about me about how I teach students around the world, whatever. And Morgan Stanley HR in Hong Kong picked it up, and then they reached out to the head of PR, for the company, for the brand, for Morgan Stanley Asia, and head of PR then basically called me in and asked me what's happening. So my boss was super nervous because the person who's head of PR is super senior, and my boss was like, "Oh my gosh, Sherjan, I don't know what's going to happen. Why didn't you tell me about this, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Hey, look, it's going to be fine. It's not like I'm doing anything illegal. I'm just teaching students how to break into literally your firm." So when we met with the head of PR, he was super awesome. He's like, "Hey, look, love what you're doing. Keep doing it. Just let me know next time that you do kind of a news release or some sort of article with reporters, because we have to be very careful about what we say to reporters, but you're totally fine. Not an issue at all." Again, I asked for forgiveness. It's totally fine. And then he also gave me permission to move forward. So anyways, point of the story is, if you're passionate about something, you want to start something on the side of your corporate job or your day-to-day job, and you're just super interested in doing something on your own, pushing the platform and going beyond the platform, then my recommendation to you is to just go do it, right? As long as it's legal, it's not illegal, as long as you're not hurting anybody, you're helping the world and you're helping your own passion and you're spreading the joy, all that good stuff, go do it. And yes, you may get into trouble. Don't worry about it. Just ask for forgiveness then. Never ask for permission. You're always going to get shut down if you do that. Good luck.